Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are looking at the top 120 episodes, give or take a few. This is our sixth venture out here. Plenty of episodes to choose from. But before we launch into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a Supernatural fan since season 3. Started writing fanfic in 2012. I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast So Get This, the lore of supernatural fan fiction. And as Ellis Colton, I am a male romance author.
All right, Elektra.
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and was watching Supernatural starting at the very first episode and all the way until the very last episode.
Ouch. Melissa?
Would y'all please stop breaking me before I even get my introduction out? Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is Kitty, and I've been like Elektra, I've been a fan since the pilot, and Kitty has been a fan since 2020. Yeah, 2020.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months for the start of season 12. And well, here I am, proud to be an obsessed fan. So we've gone through quite a few episodes so far. And as we discussed before we started the recording, that makes it a little more challenging because when you knock off the obvious favorites, then you start looking at some of those undervalued episodes, or maybe the ones that didn't come to mind, but boy, there was just something about them. So Carole, start us off with an episode.
I still have like a whole page worth here, so I'm all set for a while. I'm just going to go in order. So the first one I have in the random ordering of this list is Something Wicked. Something Wicked, it's season 1, the 18th episode, so it's near the close of season 1. We've now seen the boys go through a number of Monster of the Week stuff, and we have the arc going of what on earth was happening, with demons and stuff. Something Wicked is really, really great because we have our first flashbacks of a young Sam and Dean. I think Sam looks to be like 3. Dean, therefore, would be like 7. John has had no problem just leaving them alone in a hotel room, telling Dean, make sure you lock the door. He goes off to do whatever. Yep, this is Melissa's favorite tag, John Winchester's A+ parenting. Well, Dean, being a normal little boy, goes out, has a little fun, made sure Sammy was locked in, yada, yada, yada. The Monster of the Week itself is really interesting. It's a Striga. He's sucking the life force out of little kids to keep himself young and immortal. And he's posing as a doctor, which of course is the perfect way to get a hold of a bunch of kids. But the flashbacks are really the gem of this. We see the boys. We see Dean in his role as caretaker and big brother. We see John leaving them. We see John berating Dean because Dean left. Just manifestly unfair. So there's A+ parenting all over. Ultimately, the boys now have to face the Striga as they are present day grown men. The Striga got away that time. And so now Dean feels this personal vendetta. He's got to get this Striga. It's just so interesting to see that perspective of them, to see where they came from, to see how they were raised in this little nutshell of these flashbacks. We totally get the idea of what Dean's dedication is like, what his guilt is like. He feels incredibly guilty with this, And I mean, we extrapolate that through the entire series, is this massive guilt for everything under the sun, and especially, not killing a monster and not being the protector of Sam that, he strives to be. So it's a real eye opener. Adds this really great depth to the characters, tied up really well in this episode. And the actors they chose to be young Sam and young Dean, I think, performed were really, really well. They were really good. And your heart breaks for them, and you're ready to kind of give John a little taste of his own medicine.
Well, the John is there's a bad and worse version of his parenting in this. Either he left them alone with the monster on the loose, bad, or he used them as bait to catch the monster, worse. And with how quickly he shows up when the monster shows up,
right, it's a little too coincidentally quickly.
I kind of think he used them as bait.
Yeah, it's definitely in line with what we see of his character. And the final little note is that there's one of those great one-shot characters. We have the young boy who is helping his mother run the motel that they're staying at, and he's got a younger brother, and the younger brother gets sick because of the monster of the week. And he's in like 3 scenes and he just nails it. You feel so much for him immediately. And when he knocks on the door to say he'll help, and he says to Dean, do you have a brother? Wouldn't you do anything for him? And of course, and then we see Sam in the background, and of course we see Dean. It's just really, really lovely. Like I say, this whole sense of depth. Good monster of the week. Love this episode.
Okay.
And this was also, we really see the cementing of take care of Sammy, because this is certainly the first time we see, and it may have been the first time where Dean veered off the path of taking care of Sammy. Something bad happened. And so he had not only something bad happen to Sammy, but then John's reaction and the way John acted to Dean, that really was another level of cementing that take care of Sammy imperative for Dean. So it's we get to really see how Dean's character is formed, a core piece of his character is formed in this episode. And I love it because, I am a fan of John Winchester as A+ parenting, and this is where it comes from.
Yeah, it really does.
Elektra?
I can't believe this one is one we haven't picked. In season 14, Lebanon. That is absolutely one of my favorite episodes in the series. We've built up now to season 14, and the boys have gotten pretty comfortable walking around in Lebanon, Kansas, and they pick up a pawn shop looking for one thing, and they find something that will give them a wish, and they wish for what they think they want. And instead, it gives them what they, the life they thought they wanted, which was their family all together. Dad turns up there in the bunker, but it turns up they go out into town to pick up supplies, and no one recognizes them as Dean and Sam Campbell. And it turns out in this alternate timeline, in order to have Dad still alive, well, then he and Sammy must not have gotten along very well. And Sam became a really nasty ass lawyer who did some TED Talks talking about how you got to just ignore your family and ignore all your ties. And, what about that awesome Gail? And, Dean is wanted for a series of killings, many of them, beheadings. So they can't just be seen in public at all. But they do have some time in the bunker together, and they get one special family dinner together as adults, before they have to let Dad go back to where he was, because they realize all the good they did together for all that time is just going to be gone. And they even let us see Dad waking up and talking about what a great dream he had.
Yeah,
It's such a wonderful, heart-wrenching episode. It gets me right in the gut every time I see it.
absolutely. Melissa.
Let's see, where do I want to start? I'm gonna go with Taxi Driver. This is one of those that I can't believe hasn't been called out yet either. Sam's got to go. It's the trials, and Sam's got to go to hell, and he's going to rescue Bobby's soul. And in order to get there, he's got to go through purgatory. And the taxi driver who was supposed to get him back out of purgatory gets killed. And so Dean has to ask Benny to go into purgatory to get Sam and bring Sam back, because Benny can do it. And first of all, I'm a Benny girl. I think that character was awesome. And the scene in the alley where Dean is saying, hey, can you do this? It's too much to ask. No, you really can't do it. And the pain that Dean feels asking someone to sacrifice himself for Sammy is kind of unusual, because Dean has no problem sacrificing the people for Sam. He has, Sam is, as we said, protecting Sam is his moral imperative. But this is one time where we see Dean with a friend asking his friend to put himself in peril, and Dean's really reluctant. He asks, but then he backtracks, and he recognizes that this is really going too far. So that was really interesting, because we don't see that from Dean in other places where he's asked people to do dangerous things. He's really conflicted about this, and Benny is absolutely willing to do it. We get the sense that, Benny recognizes he doesn't fit in with this world, and so he's willing to do it. And that whole scene is just amazing and wonderful if you're a Benny fan. And it is the scene that spawned many, 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 many fan fictions. So that's my entry for this.
Okay. Mine isn't maybe quite as consequential, but there was just a lot about it that I liked, and it's beyond the mat. So we get to see Sam and Dean looking into they're looking into demon possessions. They're looking into a bunch of issues, and it brings them to a wrestling match. And there's just some fun stuff here that Sam says, remember when Dad brought us to a match? Now, they didn't go to a match every week. They didn't. Baseball games, we know, was not part of what John did with them. He did it with his other kid. So going to any kind of a sporting event with John would have been a big deal for Sam and Dean, because it wouldn't have happened much. They didn't take much time off. They didn't have the money. John didn't let up on the agenda. So just to see them reminiscing about something they did with John that was actually fun. And then watching them in the audience cheering for Dean's favorite wrestler. And they're so into it, and they're having a great time, and they're just being two guys out watching a wrestling match. This is not Sam and Dean Winchester, destroyer of worlds. This is two guys out having a good time. So that alone is a rare glimpse that we get of them. And then we get that great scene where Dean doesn't think anybody's around, and he gets in the ring, and he's posing, and he's bouncing off the things, and then Jensen Ackles has the agility of a cat. So when he makes himself look clumsy, falling off the ropes and tumbling off onto the ground, that's entirely on purpose. And of course, he makes it look perfectly natural, but we know what that guy can do. So, and then it ends up being that the wrestler that was one of Dean's childhood idols sold his soul to get his wrestling belt back. And then it ends up being a sad episode from the perspective of the wrestler, but he ends up still being kind of a hero in the end, even though he made some bad choices. And I just loved it for the little glimpse of normalcy that we got, even though it wasn't a big Monster of the Week episode, it wasn't a big season arc episode, but we got so few glimpses of that I thought it was special just for that reason. Carol?
Yeah, I love that for that episode for those reasons.
Mhm.
Exactly. And the actor who plays the wrestler, I've seen him in a bunch of other movies as a character actor, and he's always like so enjoyable to watch. You know, he's really fun. All right, so next on my list of utterly randomly placed episodes is Bad Day at Black Rock, season 3, episode 3. Sam and Dean are dealing with a cursed rabbit foot. Of course, rabbit feet are lucky. And this rabbit foot is super lucky unless you lose it. And then all your luck goes bad. And so Sam has it. Sam loses it. Sam turns into a complete klutz. He loses his shoe. One of the best scenes is he's tied up in a hotel room, and yet the air conditioner catches on fire, and then the curtain goes up in flames, and he's not even doing anything. Everything's going to crap around him. Love it. I love seeing the guy whose name just left my head. Kubrick. I love seeing Kubrick. He's always a riot. We have Bella's in there mixing things up. We have glorious moments when Dean has the rabbit's foot and manages to throw a bic into a gun muzzle and stuff. So not like the Beyond the Mat, there's no real plot advancement here that we're worried about, but it's funny. We get to see the guys doing, some great comedy stuff. And they're just so good at it. They're, and they make it look effortless. And so it's just fantastic to see a little lighter episode of the Winchesters when life goes awry around them.
Well, and we got 2 memeable moments from this episode with I lost my shoe and I'm Batman.
I'm Batman, right.
And this is why Jared Jensen can respond to other people's text messages with their own gifts, because the show makes it so quotable. Elektra?
This episode tells us who Bella really is.
Yes.
Because even though both of them were in trouble, Bella was perfectly happy to take the rabbit's foot and sell it to a buyer and make money off it. Because that's who she was deep down. She just didn't care. Not about other people. And they had to trick her into touching the rabbit's foot and making it on her too before she would agree to burn the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an important advancement in the plot, because it taught us who Bella was and to be really careful of her, because she just could not be trusted ever.
Very true.
And I think that was super important. All right, zipping forward to season 9, Slumber Party. Slumber Party shows us more stuff about the bunker, because we get to see 1935 bunker where Dorothy Baum, L. Frank Baum's daughter, has brought the Wicked Witch from Oz, and they can't figure out how to kill her, so they pretty much bottle her up and leave her there where she's safe, where now she has been forgotten, behind a bookcase or something in the one room, until they, pretty much screw it up later in the episode. They've got Crowley sitting down there while they're, trying to pry stuff out of him. And they're trying to figure out what's powering the computer, and they realize it's running on something weird. So they get Charlie in there to help them out. And while Charlie's running something on her computer, they go like binge Game of Thrones, because of course they do. And hilarity ensues. The witch gets out, they're chasing her, they have to get the magic bullets to get the witch. Oh, it is such a fun episode. We get Charlie, we get Dorothy, we find out how you get to Oz using the magical key that Dean, threw into a box with his porn. And, Charlie decides, hey, an adventure. I'll go to Oz with Dorothy. And we say goodbye to her for a while. It's so much fun to hang out with Charlie in the bunker. It makes the bunker fun.
And wouldn't you pay good money for a spin-off of Charlie and Dorothy in Oz? I mean, I would have loved to have seen that.
I would have paid good money just for the Oz spin-off, but yeah, definitely that version of Dorothy.
Mhm.
And Charlie is a bonus. I'll watch Felicia Day do almost anything.
This is true.
And
Melissa?
we have a really great moment at the end where Sam turns to Dean and says that the bunker is home, that they're home, which he, until this point, he had been treating the bunker as, an elongated pit stop, but now he's accepted that this is their
Dean
home.
had been nesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
Dean was thrilled. He had a place he could put his porn collection.
Mhm.
So it was nice to
And
see
hang up
Sam
his
kinda
gun.
settle into that,
Mhm.
and see it that way.
Okay. Melissa?
The memory remains. It's a monster of the week. The monster of the week part of it isn't even worth talking about. But at the end, they're dealing with the monster of the week, and the guy says something about, legacy, blah, blah, blah. And then the guys are back at the bunker, and Dean asks about, what's our legacy going to be? Are we going to be ever is anybody going to remember us? And they have a little bit of a conversation about, our legacy is the people that we saved, and that's all good. But then Dean gets out the pocket knife and he carves his initials into the table, and you see the flashback of the two boys, very, very young, carving their initials into the Impala. And Sam takes the knife and he carves his initials into the table. And it's just this beautiful intercut of when they were kids versus the today. And then recently, we've learned that Jensen actually has that piece of the table, that was one of the things that he took from the set when they wrapped. And I just think that that's really cool. I'm glad that one of the guys got that prop, because it's that SWDW has become iconic in fandom, and it was just sort of this throwaway thing. But how many people have tattoos of that or clothing with that? I have the SWDW carved on the table that I've got in front of me, because it was just like, oh wow, that's really cool. I have to do that because it hit the fandom, a large piece of the fandom, very strongly. So even though the episode itself, it's like, who cares about the monster, whatever, let me watch the last 5 minutes. I literally was like, okay, last 5 minutes of the show, because that's really the only thing that was impactful. But it was really impactful.
Hugely.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Werther. This was a really creepy monster of the week episode. But as usual, with most of the monsters of the week, there's more to it. And this woman is living in the house that her entire family perished in. And she won't leave, she won't sell it. And what we find out is that Cuthbert Sinclair had, one of the nastier men of letters, had left something in the basement. And even though they tried to ignore the basement, chain the door shut, little by little, this object in the basement drew each of the people in this woman's family in and killed them. And now Sam and Dean have shown up, and Sam is convinced that there's something in the box that is going to help him break the mark of Cain. So of course Sam will do anything. And he hasn't been completely truthful about Dean about what they're hunting and why. Big surprise. And so they both start, we know that Dean is getting pulled under the spell of whatever this thing is, but we see Sam being very rational and logical in the basement, cracking this strange safe. And as Dean is fighting the lady who lives there, because now they're both affected, and they're hallucinating, and they're seeing all the stuff that is, fighting things that aren't there. We see Sam doggedly going on to crack this safe to get this book that's going to save Dean. And it requires blood. And Rowena shows up, and Sam and Rowena are talking about what it's going to take. And Sam is willing to bleed out if that's what it takes to feed the box to get the book to save Dean. And only at the end do we find out, when Dean comes down and says, well, we're both legacies, we can both bleed. There's no book. This was Cuthbert Sinclair's very evil trap. And Rowena was never there. She was Sam's hallucination. We didn't know Sam was hallucinating. Sam was hallucinating the whole time, just like Dean was hallucinating, and Dean breaks out of it and saves Sam. So this is, I just loved that. It was a good monster of the week. You didn't really see it coming. You weren't quite sure what was going on. And then you get that wonderful brother bond of, well, we can both bleed. And so for all those reasons, I thought it was just, I love it when an episode surprises me. Back to you, Carol.
That was actually on my list as well, the Werther Project, because I loved how dark it really was, for all of the sometimes creepy things or the emotional things. This episode was particularly dark, and I loved how they worked with the hallucinations and the evil emanating from this device. And then, having Rowena dissipate into mist was like, whoa, totally got me over on that one. I'm going to go back to the past again with season 2, episode 8, Crossroad Blues. Yeah, Crossroad Blues, which brought us a big hunk of stuff that Supernatural continued to mine and use throughout the rest of its run. We met hellhounds for the first time, and how they are the ones that would come to drag people to hell. We find out about crossroads demons, where one goes to a crossroad and buries certain little elements of things, and a crossroad demon will appear, and you have a chance to then trade your soul away for whatever it is you're seeking. And just the whole prospect of that is pretty chilling. And what we get to see these very sophisticated, slinky, snarky demons, because they're kind of like salesmen. They want that soul. And so they're going to bargain with you and everything. So a lot goes on here. And man, those are elements that they constructed that, we just saw repeatedly as part of the construct of the show itself, and it was things that they would be returned to time and time again. So, but this is our first time, so it's exciting, it's creepy. We're like, what is going to happen? And it's just really a terrific episode.
Okay.
They even tied in Robert Johnson, who was a real guy.
Mm-hmm.
There were always those rumors he made that deal with the devil.
Yeah. Yeah, that legend is real. So yeah, that was a brilliant stroke. Melissa?
Oh, Soul Survivor. And this is another one that I can't believe wasn't on the list already. Sam tries to cure Dean from being a demon. And we often say that Dean will sacrifice himself to save Sam. Sam will burn down the world to save Dean. And we see it in this episode. He gets some hapless guy to summon a crossroads demon, and so that, you know, Sam wants to talk with the demon, but no demons are answering his phone calls right now. So Sam gets this guy to do it. This guy ends up losing his soul and getting killed. And it's all, you know, directed because of Sam. And Sam doesn't even seem to care very much. And it's just one of those, like, Jensen directed it. And there's, towards the end of the episode, Dean is chasing Sam through the bunker with an axe. And it's very, very, very The Shining, evocative of The Shining. There's a lot of that. If I ever get a chance to do a meet and greet with Jensen, I want to ask him how much he was influenced by The Shining, because it really, there were a lot of moments that resonated with it. So it's just one of those iconic, another one of those iconic, like, everybody knows that scene where he's breaking down the door with the axe because he's going to kill Sam because he's a demon. To Mark Kane, that's what he does. It's just one of my favorite episodes, just because it's, Sam's not hopped up on demon blood. Sam's got no reason to endanger a human. That kind of goes against their ethos. And yet, wait, I got to cure Dean. I'll do anything to save Dean. And we see it so clearly.
Yep.
I
Elektra?
don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe then, how about
No.
Sharp Teeth? Sharp Teeth is the reemergence of Garth after he's been missing for a bit in episode 9. And there are some cattle mutilations that Sam and Dean go to explore. And there's a guy that's been arrested for him, and they find him in the hospital, and lo and behold, it's Garth. And when they find him and they let him out of the handcuffs, he goes into the restroom and disappears out a window. And they're like, what the heck is going on? And they chase him outside and he disappears. And they finally track him down, and he's living with a woman, yay Garth. And it turns out Garth is a werewolf. And it turns out that Garth is now married and his wife is a werewolf. And his wife's whole family is werewolves. And they're nice, good, God-fearing people, and they belong to a church, except some of them may not be as good and God-fearing as others, because they belong to some sort of, you know, terminal werewolf cult that thinks that the werewolves should, you know, like, eat all the people and rule the world. So Sam and Dean help clean up that problem and, you know, leave Garth and Bess to live happily ever after with the good werewolves. And it's just absolutely adorable to see Garth with this, you know, gorgeous blonde who happens to, you know, just have sharp teeth. And, you know, it means he also has a superpower because he's stronger than, you know, he used to be. And that comes in handy and will in the future.
As do his dental skills, because werewolves really need to have clean teeth. So it all sorts itself out. Yes.
He went back to school and finally finished off his dental degree, because that's what he'd been doing before, you know, he found, what was it, a tooth fairy?
Mm-hmm.
And ended up being a hunter.
Well,
everybody has a way in.
Yeah, I'm going to pick who we are. This was season 12, and it comes right after Sam and Dean have used the grenade launcher and figured out how to get out of the bunker when Ketch and the Men of Letters locked them in there to die with Tony. And Sam rallies the hunters to make a strike on the Men of Letters. And what I really love is the interplay between Sam and Dean at this point in their relationship, after all that's come beyond. Dean's messed up his knee, saving them by crawling up this very small shaft. And he says, I can't go with you. I'll hold you back. And Sam says, I'd rather have a jacked up Dean Winchester with me any day, but Dean knows he's not up to a raid. So he's going to stay at the bunker with Tony and Mary and try to deprogram her with the machine. But this is, Dean encourages Sammy to step forward and be a leader. And that's such a great step in their relationship, because early on, you know, Sam was chafing at still being a little brother, even though he's grown up and he's gone to college. And Dean, why do you always treat me like a little kid? And we need to be equals. We need to be partners. And this is Dean saying, I trust you. You can handle this without me. You can do this. I have full faith. Step up, Sam. And you see Sam address the hunters and say, so my brother and I were thinking, I want to tell you. And he takes ownership of the leadership. And that's such a great moment of growth and progress for both brothers. And you go, Sammy. So of course he's a brilliant leader. I also like that we finally get paybacks on Walt and Roy, who, if you remember, way back in Dark Side of the Moon, shot Sam and Dean. And that's how they get to heaven, and Zachariah gets to mess with their minds. And, you know, one of them warns the other, you can't kill Sam Winchester in front of Dean Winchester. He'll hunt us down. And Dean says, when I come back, with the certitude only a Winchester can have, I'm going to get you. It's been a long time coming. Of course, they're the cannon fodder that don't make it through the raid. And so I was very happy about that. That was paybacks coming a long time. But this is basically Sam leading a bunch of hunters to take out the Men of Letters. And for the Men of Letters thinking that they are all that, they sure don't put up a good fight. Jody gets rid of the nasty headmistress, and Mary shoots Catch. One of Mary's best moments in the show. So
That was the British Men of Letters.
The British Men of Letters, yes. But yeah, I loved that the hunters, those scraggly hunters, those, you know, the British Men of Letters kept calling them apes. Well, they chafed your ass, didn't they? And so that was very. We broke Melissa. This is, you know, hi, Melissa. All right. Back to you, Carol.
I have to comment on that one because I love that episode. I love the raid. It's just full out warfare, which again, we don't see very often, you know, but this is a staged military operation here. We have Banff Sam, who is just glorious. And Jody is kicking ass and taking names. And the attack they mount is just so fantastic. It's so exciting to watch. And then the flip side of just this very quiet story with Dean facing off with Mary and getting to tell her what he really thinks and how she really let them down. You know, I love you, but man, did you screw up. And yeah, that was on my list as well. It's just such a good episode.
Okay.
All right. So let's go with Point of No Return. Oh dear. Oh my. The angels are having all kinds of hijinks as they try to bring on the apocalypse. They brought Adam back as a backup for Dean not being Michael's vessel. He's squirreled away in the beautiful room. Dean's telling Sam, I'm going to say yes. And Sam's like, you know, I can't see you doing that. You just, and he's like, no, I'm going to do it. But then of course he doesn't. And in fact, he ends up killing Zachariah during this really tense face-off in the beautiful room. They make a break for it. At the last second, man, they can't get Adam out. The door is locked before they get him loose. So
Story of Adam's life.
The story of Adam's life. But very exciting, very tense. Zachariah's trying to kill Sam in slow motion in front of Dean to force him to say yes. And in fact, he drives Dean the opposite way. And we have this great little sly wink that Dean does. And all of a sudden, Sam is like, oh my gosh, he's not going to say yes. And just very, things are turning on a dime. Everything's flip-flopping. Things are moving fast. And it's just a real, you got to hold on to your seat there.
Okay. Melissa.
I'm going to first jump back to Memory Remains because as I was looking through my notes, I forgot something. After the guys carve their initials on the table, the camera pulls back and you see the bug device that Ketch installed because while the boys were out, the men of letters went in and like they were searching and they hit a whole bunch of recording devices and whatever. So we pull back and we see the table, the recording device, and we see Dean saying, he's talking about Ketch, low rent Christian Bale, which I almost fell off the couch laughing at. And then they call Mick, because Mick is supposed to be their handler, and they Ketch says, oh no, it's me now, blah, blah, blah. And we get Ketch saying chupacabra. And there is some of the best outtakes are with Jensen and Jared messing with David, getting him to say chupacabra over and over and over. And it is one of the classic outtakes. So I needed to give that an honorable mention before I went with my last episode. Last episode, Rock Never Dies or Mamma Mia, they're kind of tied for the same reason. Rick Springfield has made, controversy ahead. Rick Springfield made the best devil, made the best Lucifer, save for Sam as Lucifer. He really, really he was great in that role. I liked him better than anybody else that has played Lucifer except Sam in the white suit, because come on.
Rick Springfield.
But Rick Springfield was amazing, and that's why those two episodes are fabulous, because Rick as Lucifer, he nailed it.
And we get Sam F. and Winchester holding the doors open.
Yes.
Otherwise Lucifer's gonna trap everybody in the concert. And there's Sam holding the doors. That was just so brilliant.
Damp Sam.
Damp Sam, yeah. Elektra?
Last call. Last call is Dean going off to deal with just routine. Somebody has disappeared at the infamous Swayze's bar in Texoma, Texas. And he goes in to check the place out and starts asking around and realizes, wait, I know the guy that owns this place. He used to be a hunter. And they start chatting things up, and they go up and they sing on stage together, and he's welcomed like a long lost hero. And everything is fine and dandy, and the guy is helping him out, and everybody's helping him out. And yeah. And the hunter has a monster tied up in the basement in a locked room, and he feeds him bodies every now and again, because that means he gets to keep the bar, and it's a success, because, that's how we all end our hunting career, right? I mean, that's totally what you would do, right? Given the option, I found this monster and all I have to do is feed it a body now and again. People no one give a damn about, and everything is cool.
Well, margins are very thin in the food and beverage industry.
Well, yeah, Dean, not so much. Dean lets the monster out and feeds Lee to it, and everything is fine. And then he kills the monster because, well, it eats people. So,
And gave us that amazing moment singing the
yes.
song.
Christian Kane
Yes.
with Jensen, and those guys are friends in real life. And we need more of that, please. I need more of that.
Well, and apparently when Jensen invited Christian to come be on it, Christian said, "You're going to kick my ass, aren't you?" Jensen said, "Yep."
Well, the first they kicked asses together.
Yeah.
And there was a great Roadhouse moment.
Yeah.
Christian was definitely channeling his Elliot from
Oh,
Leverage.
come
That
on.
was very much
He's
like
channeling Patrick Swayze the whole time.
That too.
I mean, Elliot, yeah, but also he's got a series out on Amazon where you can watch him beat the crap out of people in every episode with like a little bit of help here and there, set in the Philippines, so there's beautiful scenery.
So for my last one, I'm going to pick Sex and Violence. Now, this is one with the siren. And Sam and Dean are doing a Monster of the Week, and they come to this town where people are killing the person they love the most. And it comes out of nowhere. These are people who have been very, very close to this person, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a parent. There's no history of trouble, and then all of a sudden the person kills this person who's very special to them in an extremely violent way, and when the killing is done has no idea why they did it, and are very remorseful, and their entire life has now been destroyed and they don't even know why they did it. And Sam and Dean separately meet this guy who played Hoyt Fortenberry in True Blood. So I can only ever see him as Hoyt. But what's really interesting in the psychology of Sam and Dean on this is for most, I think for everybody else, the person they killed was a spouse or a girlfriend or somebody that they loved. In Sam and Dean's case, the siren shows up as a better brother. He knows that Sam wants Dean to acknowledge that Sam is all grown up now and Sam is a good hunter and Sam can do these things. He's doesn't have to take a step behind, and he feeds into that little brother resentment and uses his magic on Sam in that way. With Dean's missing the little brother who hero worshipped, and having a brother who also likes cars and also shares his taste in music and doesn't have those pesky independent streak that Sam has that tends to get under Dean's skin. And it's just such an interesting twist in this show that it's not that their romantic interest. It wasn't Lisa that Dean tries to kill. It wasn't, well, anybody that Sam's got who's still alive, they tend to take care of themselves that way. But it's not a romantic interest. It's the brother. It's this brother bond that is the most intense in their life, and that's what the siren feeds on. And if Bobby hadn't gotten there, Dean has this thing for axes. If Bobby hadn't gotten there right in time, well, the show would have been shorter. But
or at least
with
Sam.
so, but it all works out. And it's just such an intense show because in the thrall of the siren, they both say things to each other that really cut deeply. And even though, as in, with the cursed coin later on and with the asylum early on, they just because you're irritated with somebody doesn't mean you really mean that all the time or to the depth of what might come out. There's a lot of fence mending that has to happen after this for the boys to get back. And I don't think it ever really sinks into them that what mattered was that the siren picked the person you loved the most. Well, hey, dipshit, you can fight all you want about what was said, but that should trump everything else, because what does it prove? This is the person you love the most. So that's mine. Well, folks, we have blown through our time. There are still great episodes to talk about, and we will. But before we wrap up, please let us know. See, and I've got some on my list too, so we got a whole lot more episodes to go. Let us know where we can find you online, Carol.
I'm easily found on Facebook as Carole M. Stokes, especially in the Continual and the TFWNC groups. On X/Twitter, I am true_firesign10. Instagram, firesign10, and all of my fanfic is on AO3 under firesign10. Mind the tags. As Ellis Colton, all of my social media links are on card.co, and my debut novella, Prescription for Love, is now available on Amazon.
Very good. Melissa?
You can find me on Twitter as Tin Hat Daydreams. I write very, very short, real person fiction. Mind the profile on that before you read.
Okay. And Elektra?
You can find everything you need to know at untilmidnight.com. And I'm on social media at Elektra wandering.shop on Mastodon. That's where I do most of my posting these days.
And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com, on most of the social medias. I'm under one or both of those names, so if you spell them right, you'll find me. I also run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business blog, but most of the time I'm here on Continual. So thank you all so much for being fantastic panelists. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon, so we'll see you online.